Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this level of the conference. Hope you had a good conference so far. Lots of stuff out there in the world. So today our conversation is going to be about optimizing RSS feeds to improve the new listener experience. That is the title of the topic, and I will be giving you some more information about that as we go along. So, welcome to that. Let us get started, shall we? Okay, let me get my app back up here working to where I want it to be, and we can go. So, my name is Evo Terra, and I have the dubious honor of being the single presenter, I think, in the entire conference who is not actually an audio fiction creator. I am, however, an audio fiction enabler, and I'm a huge fan of the medium. So fair warning, but relax. This talk is going to be probably the most technical of the presentations of the con, but I promise you, you do not need to be technically inclined yourself, neither to understand what I'm talking about, nor to implement my suggestions. So no back-end coding, no any of that stuff. Everything I'm going to do will be something you can easily implement in your fiction podcast. Also, I'm going to leave a whole lot of time at the end of this for questions. So go ahead and write them down, or if you want, ask them in the chat. And I will see those. I will likely wait until the end to answer them, but if something is super important, I might jump into it. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So let's first talk about why I'm up here having this conversation with you. So as many of you might know, if you are audio fiction fans and audio fiction creators out there, I run The End. That is the directory for binge-ready audio fiction. We have over 2,000, almost 2,000. I think we're at 1,900 today. So almost 2,000 binge-ready audio fiction shows, mostly fiction podcasts. And by binge-ready, I mean the entire series is over and done, or the show has reached at least a single season finale so that listeners, the people that I care about most, can binge it and get caught up. That's great. It's also a listener-focused resource that you can use in place of your very not good podcast listening app. Podcast listening apps are just horrible places to search for new shows. We're going to talk about why that is in just a moment. So ideally, you start with The End. You'll get a lot more information about each show that's in there, like listening length, completeness, crowdfunding, more of that. And we have helpful, deep links to just about every listening app. So it's just better to start searching with The End. And it's free service, by the way. I don't charge anybody any money not to be listed there, not to listen from there, or to get to listening links from there. It's all free. But in the early days of podcasting, way back in 2005, I created a site called podiobooks.com. I was working with a lot of fiction authors at the time and creators, and there was this thing that we did that were these audiobooks that were released as a podcast. It wasn't quite an audiobook because people were creating them with sound effects and with multiple voices and with music, all things that are no-no in the audiobook space. But they weren't quite normal podcasts back in the early days because they were self-contained. They had a beginning and an end. They weren't an ongoing thing, and you wanted to listen in a particular order, things that just normal podcasts didn't do. I'm also one of the authors of Podcasting for Dummies, the first edition, which came out way back in 2005. And then they asked me to also help write Expert Podcasting Practices for Dummies, which is arguably the worst title of the book everywhere. But those are out there, and I did those. These days, I run a strategic podcast consultancy called Simpler Media. We primarily work with business clients, but I also have a fair number of audio fiction podcast creators as clients or production teams or networks. This is not a sales pitch. I am not here pitching anything. Everything I'm telling you right now is totally free. But if you do find yourself in a situation to where you need some pro help, let me know. I'm pretty flexible and I work with all sorts of budgets. Okay. Now, I share all of that stuff not to brag, but in an effort to demonstrate to you that while I may not be the most reliable person on a whole lot of things, this is not one of them. I probably have seen more RSS feeds specifically for fiction podcasts than just about anybody else. So that's why I'm doing this. And also, if you follow these very straightforward and well-considered guidelines I'm about to give to you, you will create a much better experience for especially the new listeners. And that's what we really want, right? New listeners to listen to our content. Absolutely. So here we go. Here's a fact for you. As you can see right there, podcast hosting companies suck at hosting fiction podcast. Yes, they all do. Even the ones that I have consulted for, and I've consulted for a couple of them now, they just don't do a good job of hosting fiction podcasts. And that's for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one is that if you look at all of the fiction podcasts that are currently available, new shows, ongoing shows, completed shows, you creators of fiction podcasts represent 0.3% of the overall podcast market. Not 3%, 0.3%. So, no. We should not be expecting podcast hosting companies to cater to our needs anytime soon. And no, that's not enough of a marketplace to go create your own fiction podcast hosting company. I mean, maybe you can, but I'm not about to do it because I just don't think it's a money-making proposition. And also that's a whole lot of work I don't want to do. But more importantly, we can tweak almost every one of these hosting companies to get exactly what we need, what we get. The reason this is important is that fiction podcasts are consumed by listeners completely differently than normal podcasts, right? Fiction podcast creators are in the same camp as people who make documentaries, true crime shows, multi-part educational series, and other sorts of information delivered in podcast form where continuity is key. You can't really skip an episode in a fiction podcast. You can't really listen out of order. Oh, and by the way, and if you think that your way of making a fiction podcast is just like every other podcast, well, then you get to allow me to prove you wrong as this continues forward. Okay, this presentation is going to be about 8 different fixes you need to make right now. Feel free to take notes if you like, or screenshot what I've got. You will not see lots of words on my screens. You will not see code. You will not me pointing to exactly where you do things in your hosting company. Each hosting company is different. So I am here to share to you the concept around this, and you can go dig into exactly where. Or actually, I have a bunch of free guides for how to do all this stuff listed on the website, theend.fyi in the articles section. But all 8 of these tweaks can be made directly in your podcast hosting company's dashboard. All of them. So if you want, feel free. If you have a dual screen setup and you're not going to screw things up too much for your own self, go ahead and open up another screen right now. Log into your podcast hosting company and see where these are for you. They are all there. I promise. There's an asterisk, which I'm about to get to in just a minute about that. Okay? Here we go. Before I do this, at the beginning of this, as I was chatting, something came to mind. Some of you creators of fiction podcasts may not understand what or why an RSS feed exists. I'll make it simple. An RSS feed is something that you as a creator should never have to look at. Is it something that as a listener no one should ever have to look at. It is simply the way that your episodes get distributed to your listeners. It's not a complicated text file to look at, but you don't have to. It's really straightforward. It is exactly what gets your episodes from your hosting provider over to someone's listening app. And what you do on your hosting provider impacts what goes in the RSS feed, which gets to the podcast listening app. So it is critical that we get all 8 of these things right at the RSS feed level. You will never, ever, ever have to look at the RSS feed. Once again, all of this is going to be done through your podcast hosting dashboard, either at the show level or at the episode level. Okay? Okay. So, tweak number 1 is going to be serial versus episodic. This is something that we call, depending on your hosting provider, they'll either call it feed type, show type, or podcast type. And there are 2 options, serial or episodic. Now, default is episodic. In fact, if you do not set this or you have not set this, it will either be blank, which means episodic, or it will be episodic. There is no hosting platform that I am aware of today, and I'm aware of most of them, that will default to serial. So if you have not made this change, you must go in and make this change, and allow me to explain why. So again, episodic, default. That means every other podcast, which specifically means that every new listener who finds your show in their app will be presented with your most recent episode. That's what they will be listening to first. And if they choose, they can then go back, as in backwards in time, in descending order, and get the rest of your episodes. That is exactly backwards from the way your content of a fiction podcast is meant to be consumed, right? You really want serial. Serial is the way for every fiction podcast. There are always exceptions to rules, but for now, everyone should be set to serial, and here is why, he says, as he takes a drink of water because he's talking a lot. Okay. I have had someone say this to me just within the last week or so. No required listening order for narrative completion. Okay, great, but here's why they're wrong about that. You don't get a choice. The listener doesn't get a choice. The listener is either going to be presented with the last episode first or the first episode. Listening wherever you want is not an option. Listening order is forced by the listening app. And yes, I know, listeners can, much like you creators who are also listeners, can and do go in and change the sort order. And you can probably also tell your app to download all the episodes, and you can filter them however you want to. That's great. I know you can do that. Why would you force someone to do that? Why not just present your show in the way it is best consumed? And that is very likely from the beginning, right? Very, very likely from the beginning. One quick big danger that's going to be in there. If you are using Spotify for Creators, Anchor, Spotify Podcasters, or whatever they're going to call this service tomorrow, you cannot change this. By default, serial is not an option for Spotify. Spotify only does episodic shows. So let me be very clear when I say this. Spotify is not a good place to host a fiction podcast. They do not support serialized storytelling. If you are on Spotify, recognize that they suck and they're never going to change, and you must migrate away from Spotify. Please and thank you. Get off of Spotify. Specifically, here's what we talked about, right? This is number 1. First week was change your feed type to be serial. what you see on the screen right now is how it looks in the RSS feed. As I told you, you do not have to look at your RSS feed ever, but that's how it looks. That little signal right there is what every app is looking at. And if that's a modern app, not all apps do it, but if it's a modern app, they will properly do things. Everything I'm about to talk about works because of this little trick. And we're going to build out this chart as we go forward for today. Okay, that was number one. Here's number two. Season numbers. Please, please use season numbers. Season number values work in conjunction with the serial feed type. Season numbers tell your podcast listening app, season numbers tell your listeners' podcast listening app how to group episodes together. These are individual tags. I am not talking about adding something to the title of your episode. I am talking about a very specific tag, a very specific box inside of your hosting company at the episode level that says season number, and you put a number in there. Or you could do the option that this person has told me one time. We don't use seasons because we don't take breaks, but there's plenty of content available. It's true. But this comment really represents the disconnect sometimes between what the creator wants and what the listener wants. And I'm always going to be pro team listener, and I would encourage you to be that way as well. Specifically, it hits arrow button down. Look, here's why that's wrong. I know you have a lot of episodes, and there's plenty of content. People listen anywhere they want to, right? Yeah. I hear all of that stuff, right? But seeing a show that has 500 episodes in the past is, as I say right here, daunting. It is, do I want to start there? Holy cow. But see, if you group those episodes by seasons, now you provide rest stops at the end of a season. They can listen to all of season 1 and take a break and go listen to something else for a while. Then they can come back and listen to season 2, right? They can jump forward and listen to season 16 if they want to. I don't really care. But this makes it easier for new listeners to look at that giant compendium of content that you have and just start with one. They don't have to buy the entire Wheel of Time series to start. Just grab one, ideally the first one, and listen to that. And if you like more, go get more, and it's all available to them too. Oh, and by the way, this, like every other thing I'm going to talk about, will have zero impact to people who are already listening to your show. If they are caught up and they are listening as you are releasing, will not have a slightest impact on this. It impacts the new people and the people who have yet to be caught up with where you're at, and it impacts them for the better. Okay, when you're using season numbers, please use whole integers only. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No negative numbers, no 1.5s, none of that kind of stuff, right? Hosting companies will oftentimes let you just type whatever you want in that field. Do not do that. Just use whole numbers, please. And I like using them 1, 2, 3. Try not to skip. If you skip a season number in the app, that season number is just missing, and people are going to go, why? What happened to season 3 if you go to 1, 2, 4? I know a lot of creators who don't really like using seasons. They do things in yearly breaks. Great. Start with 2003, then go to 2004, then go to 2005. That's a valid season number. It doesn't have to be 1. You can make it a year if that's what makes sense to you. Just make sure it makes sense to the listener as well. Please and thank you. Oh, by the way, this is something brand new I just learned before doing this. There are some apps that are working on allowing you to actually create a season name, which may sound like it means nothing to you, but trust me, it's going to be huge once the hosting companies get on board with that, and more of the apps do. Right now, almost no hosting company is. So if yours does, if you do have an option to put a season name along with the number, go ahead and do it. Recognize that it probably won't be seen by very many apps yet, but that's today. None of the stuff I'm talking about here existed 10 years ago. And podcasting existed for 21 years ago. So plan for the future, if you would. Okay, so there's our second one. We got serial versus episodic and using season numbers. Again, this is an example of the RSS feed code. Do not worry about it whatsoever, but it shows podcast season. It's got a name, which no one's going to see yet, and then a number. The number is the important part. Let's go to number 3. use episode numbers. First was season numbers, now we're episode numbers. Why should you do that? Well, here. The episode number, not your pub date, not the episode title. This is what modern listening apps for serialized fiction podcasts use to sort, in order which to list the episodes. Not really sort. Yeah, I guess it is sort. Group was season. Sort is this one, right? So if you do this properly, again, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, don't use 3.5, whole integers again. I'll tell you that in a minute. Try not to skip, because if you leave one off, some of that, well, you have two problems. Number one, if you accidentally put up your 4th episode and you didn't put a season or an episode number of 4 on it, the app won't know exactly where to sort it. It might wind up at the bottom of the feed. It might wind up in the right place because of date and time, but I doubt it. It'll likely be in the back of the feed. So be sure you're tagging this. Every episode should have a season number and an episode number. And as I said, whole integers only, please, and thank you. Just like we had with the season number, there's now going to be an episode option to put a name in it in the future. Ooh, pretty helpful if your scenes have names, or the chapters of the audiobook that you're narrating have chapters, or you've just written it that way. You'll soon be able to put names in there again. Again, your hosting company probably doesn't do this. Most listening apps don't do this, but we're planning for that. We have built the infrastructure for that to happen now. Yay! Tweak number 4, episode types. Episode types tell the listening apps that some episodes of your show are special. To quote the late, great Orwell, all episodes are created equal. Some are more equal than others. If you know the reference, wonderful. There's 3 types. There's 3 types of episodes, and by default, everything is just a normal episode. It'll default down to something called full. But let's talk about one of the special ones first, and that is the trailer episode. Trailers are, even though the name would suggest they go into the back, they do not. Trailers are what show up at the front. I know, stupid name, ignore it. Trailers are the first thing that appear to people. It's a special episode, and if the app that the listener is listening with uses and can understand these special tags, and most of them can, this episode will appear before other episodes, especially if those episodes have the same season and maybe even an episode number. And I'll get more into that in just a minute. But just think about using an episode type. You need a trailer. Oh, in fact, one more thing about this one. This is why you do not want to use episode 0 is what we did in the past for a trailer, a prologue, or something. No, that's a trailer. No more episode 0s. Use a trailer. You can also do season level trailers. So if you want to, each season 3 has if you've done something totally differently, put a new trailer just for that season. You can do that, right? Or you could do like you're familiar with the show Madison on the Air. They use trailers for individual episodes. Yeah, you can actually have a trailer for an episode. So it's not very common, but you can do it. The second type of episode type is probably the biggest. Well, not probably, without a question, the biggest one. It's called a full. This is your normal episode of your show. People are oftentimes confused. Well, should I make this a full episode or should it be a trailer because it's a prologue and whatnot? Here's my answer to that. If the episode is canon, if listening to this episode is required to get the content, to get all of it in, then it's a full episode. Prologues, full episode, right? That's a full episode. Bonus is the other type. If it's not full, if it's not a canon, it's not part of the actual story itself, and it's not a trailer or a preview of something, then it's a bonus. This is going to be the second biggest or second most numerous type of episodes out there. These are special episodes that appear after something. This is where you put your Q&As after the end of a season. This is where you put your behind the scenes blooper reels, your interviews with your creators. All those go as bonus episodes. Oh, and one big one. Every single episode drop you do should be a trailer. Not a trailer, excuse me. Every single episode you drop, every single episode drop you put in your feed for another show should be a bonus episode, please. Okay, now we've got all of these things. Here we go. Number 5, updated description. This is what really sells your show. The show description is so important, and it is oftentimes so ignored. This is the blurb on the back of the book if you were making a book. This is what normal humans use to determine whether or not your show is worth listening to in the first place. It's incredibly important. In fact, it's so important, I think, that if you haven't touched your show description in a while, oops, you're about to see why that's a problem. Good rule of thumb here. Show description should be revisited before and after each season. When you're done with season, whatever you're on right now, as soon as you post that final episode, update your description. Before you post the trailer for the next season of your show, update your description. It's that important. Here's why. Because here's one. This is a show called 31 Stories, and the description reads, 31 Stories, written and read by James Beaumont. New episodes every Sunday. Yeah, doesn't really scream, ooh, I would love to listen to this, does it, right? No offense to James, but that's not going to entice anybody to listen who doesn't know James Beaumont. Okay? And here's the other factor. You have 4,000 characters. 4,000 characters. That's how many you can use in your show's description. I think you should use many of them. Not all of them. I mean, if you have all of them, sure, knock yourself out. But also basic formatting works in most of the listening apps. It'll certainly work inside of your podcast hosting company, or it should. That means you can bold, you can put italics, and you can even put links to other content in there. And yeah, use them. Some things to watch out for. This is a show description in the lower left-hand corner here for a live show. I pulled this screenshot from the end, the website where we have this show listed, because I think it easily illustrates the challenge here. If you'll notice on this show, I got a couple of things which drive me crazy. The first thing, well, I'm just going to point them, both of them, right? You see these red arrows? This show has not been updated. The final episode of this show published on January 11, 2021. That is 5 years, 1 month ago, about. Yet, in the show description, what I call show to synopsis, it's just the show description in your hosting platform, it starts with a new podcast from Lauren Shipman and crew, right? New, huh? From 2021. Really, Lauren? Really? No, I'm kidding. Lauren and friends of mine. Yeah, I mean, just really think about what words you put inside, and are those words going to be evergreen? Probably not. Probably not. So yeah, don't put the word new in if it's not new anymore, right? Second. And here's another one. This is a great description. Lots of data. They've used huge amounts of information, right? However, wouldn't it be better with some line breaks in between those paragraphs? Yeah, it would. So go ahead and do that. Now, not every podcast platform is going to accept those line breaks, but that's fine. You're not doing it for everyone. You do it for those that actually do those. So yeah, adding in line breaks is very, very helpful. Okay, getting close to the end of this, and then Q&A section is coming up. Linking to the website. Linking to your website. Every single app has a visit the website option somewhere, at the episode level and at the show level. Listeners can and do click that link for one reason: to get more information about your show than exists in the listening app. So when somebody clicks the link to visit website, what are they going to get if they click it for your show? Will it be like this one? By the way, directories use these links as well to get back to the show, right? It's kind of hard for me to show this on all the different podcast apps, right? So back to the question of, can listeners get more information about the show via this particular link? If you click this one for everyone and no one, what are you going to get? You're going to get the exact same stuff that exists in your RSS feed. This is just the hosting generated website, and it really only has information that's already in your RSS feed. That's the same information that's in the app. So that's not a helpful resource, especially when this happens. They've got a website for this show. It's listed inside of their description, unlinked, by the way. And because most podcast companies suck, as I mentioned at the beginning, they don't really clearly state this. It's kind of hidden around there. And it leads to this problem. But literally, the owner of this show could go into buzzsprout.com. I believe Buzzsprout calls it podcast type, or a podcast feed, or maybe they call it show website, whatever. It's got a variety of names, and they could put their actual website in there so that instead of pushing someone to the default Buzzsprout page, which is nice, I guess, but it's not really helpful. There's no more information. Go to the website where there's obviously a whole lot more information that has been developed, right? And again, if your hosting company will not let you change this, most of them will, almost all of them will, with the exception of a couple that I know of, move off. Some companies like Red Circle, for example, don't allow it in the dashboard, but you can simply email them. So I would suggest to do that. If you cannot find where to do this in your hosting company, email, ask. Hey, I want to change it to this, right? And that because they do it by default because it's an SEO play for them. It gets more links back to their domain, which isn't worth talking about. And again, if yours will not do it, hey, migrating to a different hosting company is super, super easy. Number 7, we talked about trailers earlier. We need to have you make a single series level trailer. Look, just like you want a great description that sells your show in written text and a great image, obviously, as well, you would like to have a series trailer that also helps sell it in audio. So why is that important? Well, here's what can happen if you don't have one. Screenshot from Apple Podcasts, which does a very good job of presenting the trailer up front if you have one. But if you don't, here's a brand new person listening to this show, and the latest episode is what's going to display for them. Which you think, well, that's fine. I get a good sample of what the show is. Yeah, well, what if that latest episode was an episode drop for another show? What if it was a promo for some new crowdfunding campaign, right? By simply making a trailer episode at the series level, this happens. You designate a trailer that puts your best foot forward, no matter where you're at in your release schedule. It doesn't matter if the last episode was an episode drop. You've got a solid trailer for your show. And as my notes say here, make sure you have one and only one trailer. You don't need your preview, your teaser trailer from years ago. Just your trailer, which is here's why you want to listen to this show, unseasoned, unnumbered. It's at the show level. All right? Do that. Final tweak, final comment. Creators and credits. This last option is actually more for your fellow creators than it is the listeners. But I will tell you that as a power listener, and I certainly qualify for that, I find this very helpful as well because I've listened to several hundred, if not more than 1,000 fiction podcasts in my time. And of course, I have some favorite creators, right? So in the creators section, here's why it's important. This same show, Echo Tales, which I've been picking on for a while, no apology, I'm not picking on them, I'm just pointing out some things that need to be tweaked here, obviously. The creator name is written underneath the show name. So you see where it says you've got the Echo Tales artwork, and underneath it, the Echo Tales is the show name, created by Echo Tales. What? That's not helpful. List the creators in this field. Who are the key people who are involved? That's not necessarily everyone involved, but main creator, maybe a network, or at least a production company for sure, right? And then for the full cast, put those in the show description, put those in the episode description. Those are great fields where you can place those into. You don't have to do those all right there, but please with sugar on it. Don't you repeat your show name in your creator field or the owner field or whatever the hosting company is going to call it, right? So that's it. These are the 8 things that you should tweak right now in your fiction podcast hosting company, in your dashboard. And this will make such a massive impact for you and what you have to do. So with that, I am going to say that is the end of the me talkie presentation. I left at least 10 minutes for conversations and comments, and I've got some questions right here. One of them says, I see a lot of fiction pods on many different platforms as in the same podcast, but at 5 different sites. What do you think about that? Well, it depends on what you mean by site and platform, right? I mean, if you search most fiction podcast names, you're going to get a lot of listings that is like, here's a listing for this on Google. Here's a listing for that on Spotify. Here's the listing on Listen Notes. Here's a listing in Pod News. That's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But you only have one hosting company. All of those sites reference back to the same exact RSS feed so that your numbers all look the same way. Another question, does podcast artwork affect platform ranking and reach? No. Well, not directly. Definitely not ranking. Definitely, if you ignore podcast ranking, please. It really doesn't mean much of anything today. But as far as reach, look, I mean, it's the old adage, you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, that was fine in 1854 when that was written. But today we can. We rely a lot. We infer a lot of information. Personally, if you use some janky AI created artwork, I'm going to assume that your content is also AI created, and I'm not going to listen to it. If it looks really wonky and weird, look, I think that podcasts, even fiction podcasts, tend to get the audience they deserve, and that means having good, solid artwork. So yes, please have good artwork. And for fun, you can change your artwork each season. A lot of shows like We're Alive, Old Gods of Appalachia, just to name a few, they do change their artwork every single season. Rocky says it's helpful. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know, Corey. That is the end is the name of the website, the end.fyi, but it's also a good thing in there. Second is a question that says, does consistent publishing cadence affects how RSS feeds are prioritized? No, RSS feeds are all prioritized exactly the same today. It didn't used to be that way in the past, but today, by and large, mostly speaking, every podcast, there is no prioritization really when it comes to that. As soon as you update your RSS feed with a new episode, or you change the artwork or do something else, then a ping, I'm just going to call it a ping, is sent to every single app and directory. It's not technically how it works, but just pretend with me for a moment, within seconds, honestly. Everybody gets updated really, really, really quickly. Question, is there an optimal way for creating a full team in a description? Yeah. Should it be before or after each episode description? Nope, two different things. So when you're listing your credits for your team, do it in two places. One, on the show description. First paragraph, really, really, really sell the show. Here's why I should listen. Then you can start putting in reviews and comments and whatever else. And at the bottom, you just put in list of cast. List them all out. You can list them as one line. You can list them commas. I don't really care. List out the people there. If you want to link to their personal websites, knock yourself out. Do that. But do that at the bottom. And then same thing for the episode description. Your episode description, in my opinion, should be the episode description. And if there are any cast changes, like I work with a show that is a fictional radio show, and they have guest creators on each week. There's a whole full production team that's listed on the primary website, but each week they have like guest contributors. And so that's where they list them on the episode level description. So credits should be at the show level. It's everybody that works on this show. And at the episode level, here's what was specific to that episode. Cool. What else? Bring it. I got plenty of questions, or plenty of time to answer questions while I drink this. I guess I could vamp and I'll say a few things. Oh, wait, that one. Yep. Oh, thank you. So you want to watch more of my content? I guess you could come to my house and watch me do stuff. Look, most of my work is on the end. For fiction podcasts, most of what I do is curate the end, finding new episodes, finding new shows, updating shows. That takes a huge amount of work. I follow every single RSS feed in our directory, all of them. Yeah, I don't listen to every single episode that comes out because that way lies madness, and I'm not, superhuman. But we do follow each and every RSS feed, so I see a lot of these mistakes, and these things need to be tweaked all the time, which is where this comes from. But no, I am happy to go talk on stages and do this. I used to be a regular appearances at podcast conventions, but these days not so much. But I will I will do that. Great. Someone's coming on over. That's wonderful. Okay. Another one says about content warnings. Are they okay in the synopsis, or do podcast sites flag certain words? Podcast sites do not flag certain words. There is a tag inside of your hosting company that's on explicit, yes or no, and obviously you should use that as your own conscience that let you describe. Don't worry about what are the rules. It's up to you, really. No, with very, very, very few exceptions, don't worry about it. But do worry about it from your own brain. Do you feel like this is an explicit episode? And if so, tag it that way. Is your entire show explicit, or the majority of it explicit? Then tag it that way. That is up to you and your own conscience. There's no PG ratings. There's no audience numbers. None of that stuff exists in the podcast world. So don't worry about any of that stuff. As far as content warnings for more information, I love that we should be doing content warnings, right? If you have let's say you have an episode that really gets into something horrible, some past trauma that's brought up, that should be the first thing you list in your show description. I would even go so far as possibly put that in the episode name if you're really concerned about it. But do not think that's going to have any impact on the apps or the directories. It will not. It will not. More detail about the creator field. If crediting multiple people, is it comma separated? It's just a plain text field. It is just plain text. So yes, what I would do is Mike and Sue and Jorge, comma, and this production company. That's how I would do it. But it is just a single text field that you type in. So just make it look good. I mean, because it's a text field, it has to look good. And you will be able to see that change pretty quickly in podcast podcast directories, because most of them pull it immediately for that. One quick resource for that, if you do want to see how your show looks, I would recommend using audiofiction.co.uk. Again, that's audiofiction.co.uk. The Cambridge Geek maintains a great directory with your show is probably already listed in his directory because it has everything. Shows that are ongoing listed well. But his pulls directly from your RSS feed, so you can see how it looks. In the very near future, I hope we have a new. I have a friend of mine who's a developer who helped me build Podiobooks.com way back in the day. We've worked together to build something we're calling serial feed audit. And so you can drop your RSS feed into this tool, and we will go look at it, and we will tell you how it looks. And you will be able to see where you've made mistakes. I'm using this tool every day right now just to get it fine-tuned. We need to put a better UX on it, so that'll be coming out before too terribly long. Yes. Yes, and Cambridge Geek is delightful and does a great job in maintaining it. Between him and Hitch, who runs audiodrama.directory, and me, I think we've got most things covered overall on the audio fiction directory front, but there are lots of other ones out there as well, so I'm happy with them. Last few moments for questions. Go ahead. Oh, and it can even be things that I didn't talk about if there's something specific you wanted to know. My favorite platform for listening to audio fiction specifically has been asked. So if you go to the end and you go to any one of our shows that has an RSS feed, which is almost all of them, you will see some shows listed at the top. Those shows are Overcast, or not shows. You will see some listening apps linked at the top. That's Overcast, that's Pocket Casts, that's Castro, I forget what the other one, and then Apple Podcasts. They all do a great job assuming that the creator has done a good job and updated the RSS feed the way they're supposed to. If they have done, those apps are giving the best listener experience properly. It's serial. Things have season numbers and episodes. It's just a delight to listen that way. No formatting, no refactoring, do whatever. But I'm platform agnostic. If you have a favorite app, I'm not asking you to switch. I don't think you should ask anybody to switch. But if there are apps that work better, and in fact there are 4 apps that works better, those are who I want to push people to. Cool. Let's see. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So we have 15 minutes remaining in this entire slot, although We don't have to go longer than that. It really depends on what you guys all want to ask me. So I have no plans. So I am here for the duration, and even can talk about things that I didn't talk about too. So you get to pick. Someone is typing for me right now. Dun, 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 dun. It is. The answer is coming very soon. I promise you. You're going to get an answer. You know what I'm going to do for funsies? I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can. No, I'm not going to do that. I was thinking about sharing you that tool that I'm utilizing to examine RSS feeds, but I'm afraid it's not pretty enough. It's technically good, but it's not nearly listener friendly enough. And I can't tell you how important that is, making things listener friendly. And again, especially new listener friendly. A lot of fiction creators that I speak with who've been doing it a while care about their current listeners, and that you should absolutely care about your current listeners. But oftentimes, to the point where they're not concerned about their new listeners. And that's kind of why I'm having this little preachy moment where I talk about these 8 particular things. And of course, there's a lot more. And if you go to the end.fyi in the article section, I have an article I wrote a couple of years ago that is still very relevant. It's about how to package your audio fiction show once you've reached the end of a season or the end of a series, and just ways of improvement. And some of these tips are in there. I have other tips in there as well that actually do get into things like how do you write a good show description? What makes for good artwork? Have you really thought about all of your episodes that don't need to be there anymore, right? Like if 2 years ago you were missing a week and you came on and said, "Hey, just want to let you know we're going to miss a week because we're at Dragon Con," or something like that. That was great, 2 or 3 years ago when you released it, but why make someone listen to it now, right? Your RSS feed is not a it's nothing sacred. It's your episodes of your show that are sacred, the actual canon episodes of your show. So get rid of all the speed bumps if you possibly can. When did you start listening to audio fiction? The reason I got into podcasting in 2004 was because of fiction. And I've always been an avid fiction podcast reader, and I am significantly. And it was about that same time that I started listening to audiobooks primarily. But then when I started audiobooks.com in 2005, that's when it really hit the fiction podcast consumption, and it's all I listen to. I don't subscribe to a single podcast that is not an audio fiction show. Yeah, I am. This is all that I listen to. How much water do you drink a day? She says, well, it's early in the morning for me. I try to go through at least one of these liters, if not two. That's what my wife wants me to do. Why haven't you created an audio fiction podcast? And because I'm not a fiction creator. I once tried my hand at fiction writing, and I'm not good at it. Could I be good at it? Probably, but I don't really want to become good at it. That's not what I want to do. I want to listen. I want to enjoy. And I really like working with the creators, helping them do things better for the new listeners. So I have no desire. I've acted. I have been I've been a voice on a few. But as far as actually doing the work, no. I mean, could I produce one? Absolutely. But it's just not really my strong suit. And yeah, so I'm happy to just be a very rabid consumer and active enabler. And I'm greatly appreciative of the people like yourselves who go through the toil to get this content out there. I know it's a slog, and it's oftentimes there's not a significant monetary gain at the end of it. That people do it because they love doing it and they want to do a stellar job and make content that people like me want to consume. That's magical. That is one of the things I love about, well, perhaps today, the only thing I love about where we're at in the world today is that so many of you are making great content and letting us people listen to it on our own. It's great. It's wonderful. What else? I'm looking to see if there's anything else coming in, and I'm not seeing it. My average podcast consumption per month. As he takes a drink of water, he will answer that. So January being a very bizarre month, as anybody who subscribes to the Ends newsletter, every Thursday I send out a newsletter that contains everything that has been added to our directory or has changed in our directory from the last week. And there's a little paragraph on top where I write stuff. As you know from the last month, everything has been upside down for me. But typically, I listen to, since I said I listen to audio fiction podcasts only, I listen multiple times a day. Is the short way to say that. Kitchen cleaning and cleaning the house and doing laundry and those sorts of things. And anytime I drive, the headphones go on. So it's not uncommon for me to, I made a drive back to the middle of America a couple of weeks ago, and I listened to 3 complete shows during that drive and during my time at the destination. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, I listen as I'm cleaning the house. I listen afterwards. Sometimes we'll be sitting at home, my wife and I, on the couch, and she'll be watching a show that I'm not interested in. I will grab my noise canceling headphones, drop them on, and sit there and listen while that happens. So it's a lot. I've never done the hours to add them up, but a crazy, crazy number. I have an ask here of what fiction podcast do you recommend we check out? I'm not going to recommend a fiction podcast. I'm going to tell you to go to the end.fyi and pull down the Explore the Directory, I think is what it says. Excuse me. And there's a section that the third link down says, what are the best fiction podcasts and audio dramas? Every single one of those that says fan favorite, let me change the way I say that. Almost every single one of those that says fan favorite is I am the fan. They are my favorites. And I write a short little why I loved the particular show. So those are the ones that I recommend people go and listen to. You know, it depends on your mood, depends on your style, but everywhere you go on the website at theend.fyi, if you see the little fan favorite icon next to a show, you can rest assured that I love that. And that's not saying you're going to love it. My tastes are not your tastes, and your tastes are not my tastes. But yeah, that's a really good way to go grab content. And I don't know how many there are that I have recommended, but it's a couple hundred, so you've got plenty to go through and listen to, for sure. Okay. Nearing the end of time, so we will go. Have I seen all these? Oh, I have seen all these. Got it. We're just doing that. So I'm going to kill the presentation so that you guys can see who this moron is as we're doing that. If I hit stop streaming, it'll just stop that, right? Oh, hey, hi, it's me. I am the guy who has been chatting with you this entire time. And I thank you very much for listening. We still have a little bit of time for comments. I will be very happy to answer any stragglers that we have. And I will. Until I am told to get the heck off the stage. And when I'm told to get the heck off the stage, I will get the heck off of the stage. Going to go check the website. I know that Allie, a woman who's worked for me for 6 years now, she's helping out on the end and has been going through a massive backlog of content and has been adding content. Normally, we prefer it when audio fiction creators like yourselves, when you are at a season finale or a series ending, you go to the end.fyi and submit the show to us because we ask for more information that we can get from an RSS feed. But Allie has been going through this backlog of like 4,000 shows that we think are finished. And we are slowly adding those to the directory. So right now the number is 1,797 as of this morning, which is kind of awesome. So yeah. I was asked the question, what got me into RSS feeds in the first place? when I wrote Podcasting for Dummies, that was it. I mean, I had to learn so much. We had the 40th podcast on the planet, and specifications for RSS were there, but we didn't have a lot built up for what's the right way to do things for podcasts, right? We just didn't know. We were kind of making all this stuff up as we went along, and there were a lot of changes in the early days. So that's it. Writing that book, and I wanted to be the technical person that did it. I've always been that person that wants to look at the hidden underbelly of things. Not a coder, not a developer, but just making sure things actually sync and work up properly. It's quite interesting to me. And yeah, it is a niche within fiction podcasts, one that most people ignore. To be really honest with you, and again, that goes back to the podcast hosting companies, man. If a podcast hosting company would recognize the fact that, hey, you're a fiction podcaster, click, here's a brand new path to enter all of the exact same data, will be a game changer. Be a game changer. But again, 0.3%. So I don't know that that's happening anytime soon. So I am told by a tiny space whale that this has been a fantastic panel. Well, thank you. It's a panel of one, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll do it. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this. Look, a lot of this stuff, I tried to present it as straightforward as possible, but if I didn't, if there's any questions that you have, contact me. My contact information is at the end. .fyi. I'm not hard to find. Just search for me. I'm pretty easy. Tell me that you watch this presentation and you have a question about something, and I will happily answer. I give away a huge amount of advice for free. If I ever feel like it's to the point to where we need to have an official consulting relationship, I will let you know about that. But I am happy to answer questions. My whole goal in life is to make fiction podcasting better. And doing presentations like this is one of the ways that I do this. So thank you very much for your attention. Have a lovely rest of the con, and see you next time.